Hello and welcome to the Healthy Middle Ground podcast with me, Jen Curtis. This is episode 37. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about why you need to do strength training. So my audience for this particular episode is women, let's say over the age of 30, 35, who, whether you're overweight or slim, you've never really done strength training before. Maybe you've done a lot of cardio in the past. Maybe you've never really been into exercise, or maybe you've done kind of like really light weights, high repetition stuff. So like 2-3 kilos, like 4, 5, 6 pounds, like things like the Peloton strength workouts where it's lots of reps. With a very light weight. So that also isn't strength training. I know some people talk about it as it being strength training, like is characterized by lifting like heavier weights to a certain extent. And basically what I want to do in this episode is convince you of why you need to do strength training, like create a compelling argument for why you should invest some time, some of your very limited time and energy into strength training each week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the health reasons first. So part 1 is health reasons. Part 2 is aesthetic reasons, which arguably are less important than the health reasons, but they are still very important to a lot of us. I sometimes joke that there's two types of people who say that they care about how they look and liars. But like most of us do care about how we look, and our bodies have changed a lot since having children. And strength training can have a huge impact on that. So I'm going to talk about those things. Number 3, I'm going to talk about the mental benefits. And then number 4, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the how. Now, I don't want to go into like how to do strength training. I don't want to go into too much detail with this because I'm going to do a separate podcast on that. You know, if you're a beginner, exactly how to lift weights to get really good results. But basically what I want to do is I want to explain to you how with just 20 minutes twice a week and limited equipment at home, you can get really amazing results, both in terms of health and in terms of aesthetics. Because I think most people think you have to spend hours and hours and hours in a gym, and you know that's really not for them, but it's really not the case. So I'm going to talk about that and just exactly how little you need to do to make a difference. But anyway, let's dive in first of all with the health benefits. And in particular, I want to talk about how this is important as we age, right? If you're like me and you're in your 30s, you're starting to see signs of the aging process, and they're not always pleasant. And so strength training I think it's like the most important thing to do as you age. Like, I think the biggest things that we can do to affect our health, just to list them out, as we age and as we move into our 30s and our 40s and potentially perimenopause, are number 1, being a healthy body weight. So, you know, if you are carrying excess body fat, to lose some of that body fat is one of, and I know that like there's a lot of like narratives today that like that's not actually, it's not good for you, or like dieting isn't good for you, but actually the leaner you get down to about 21% body fat, the healthier you're going to be. So losing some body fat, gaining some muscle and gaining some strength is right up there. Managing stress, getting enough sleep is right up there as well. And probably diet quality, making sure that you're getting all of the nutrients that you need from your diet, micronutrients, macronutrients, proteins, fats, things like that. Fiber, these are the biggest bang for your buck things. Building some muscle and getting stronger in the gym is massive for your health. And I would argue even better than cardiovascular training. And I'm going to explain why in a bit. So the main reason that we want to do strength training, or one of the main reasons, because they're all important, but the most obvious one that most people think about is to build muscle mass, right? To get more muscle on your body. Now, a lot of women hear this and they freak out because they're like, I don't want to get like really bulky. I don't want to look like a man. And I fully understand that concern, right? But saying that you don't want to do strength training because you don't want to look big and bulky like a man is like saying, I don't want to learn how to drive a car because I don't want to be a Formula One driver. Like, it's insane. Like, you are not going to, from just casual strength training with moderate weights, just a couple of times a week, you are not going to suddenly be really massive and bulky. But the fact of the matter is, one of the things I can tell you from being a personal trainer for the past 10 years to mums is that the vast majority of mums are massively under-muscled, okay? They have very, very little muscle mass, and this causes a lot of health problems, and it also causes a lot of injuries. So we use BMI, right, to measure, to say if somebody is a healthy weight or not. But if you take me, I'm sort of like a healthy BMI, but I am 20% body fat. So I weigh 63 kilos. I am 167 centimeters tall. So that's 5'6". And I'm 63 kilos, right? But 20% body fat. Another woman could be the exact same height as me, the exact same weight as me. So 5'6", 63 kilos, which I don't know, that's about 140 pounds in old money, but they could be 30% body fat. And I'm 20% body fat. So we're the same BMI because our height and weight is the same. But our body composition, what we call our body composition, how much the ratio that you have of fat to lean mass is totally different and will look completely different. But also physiologically inside, the body's working in a very different way. And having more muscle mass at any given weight will mean that your body fat percentage is lower. And that will mean you will look more toned, you'll look slimmer. So, you might have heard the term skinny fat, like women who are a healthy BMI, or men as well, that are a healthy BMI, but they have very low muscle mass levels, which means their body fat percentage is actually quite high. So sometimes you have what's considered a high body fat percentage is for women above about 33%, although, when you're up into the 30s, it's getting quite high already. But a healthy body fat percentage is anything from about 17 to 33%, which is quite a big range. But if you don't have much muscle, you might be a healthy BMI in terms of the right weight for your height, but if you have very little muscle mass, this means you have a lot more fat mass, and this is detrimental to your health as well. And after the age of 30, we lose about 5% of our muscle mass every single decade. Okay, so it just decreases from about the age of 35, maybe from even before then. And it's like excelled by pregnancy and postpartum, especially if you don't do any strength training during that period. So our main goal when we're doing strength training is to maintain or build some muscle mass, which is really important for a lot of things. So first of all, injury prevention. And just on the most basic level, I'm sure you've seen this too, but the women that I know, I'm 37, so the women that I know that are my age, you've got a few 2 or 3 kids, who are sort of creeping towards their 40s and perimenopause. What I'm seeing more and more is women are in this loop of injury. So because they don't have much muscle mass, they're very, very weak. And then because they're weak, they keep getting injured because the physical exertion that they need in their day-to-day lives is too great for their current strength levels. And so they keep injuring themselves. They keep hurting their back. They keep hurting their neck. They keep hurting their shoulder. They keep getting plantar fasciitis. They keep getting knee pain. And then because they've got this injury, they do even less and train less and do less in their day-to-day life. And then they get even weaker. And then they're even more prone to injury. Okay. This cycle of injuries and aches and pains only gets worse as we age. So it's really important to start reversing it early on, in our 30s. And the best way to do that is to start building strength in the muscles, but also in the connective tissues, in the joints. It's really important to strengthen all of those things as we age. And of course, so when you increase your muscle mass and increase your strength, it's not just muscle mass and strength. It's also connective tissue density and strength. It's bone density. It's joint health. It's a lot of other things as well. And often there are a lot of women doing kind of a lot more cardio, say running and things like that, and constantly twisting their ankle or getting knee pain or getting other aches and pains. And some strength training alongside your cardio is going to completely transform, get rid of aches and pains. If you do it right, if you do it with the right load, if you do it with the right technique, you can really get rid of lots and lots of injuries and aches and pains that keep setting you back. And it's really important to notice that, or to understand that strength training is far more beneficial for women than it is for men. So what I mean by that is that men are already naturally much stronger than we are. They tend to get injured a lot less. So if you think about your kids, right? I've got 3 kids, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And we have to pick them up a lot. My husband's about 3 times as strong as me. So picking up that 20 kilos or that 10 kilo baby, picking up laundry baskets, picking up shopping, moving things around the house, this is much easier for him. So he's essentially lifting up 1/3 less weight than or 2/3 less weight than I am, because his strength in relation to the things he has to do in his day-to-day life is much, much greater than mine. So it's all a lot easier. Okay. So imagine if instead of your 10 kilo 1-year-old that you're picking up all the time, he or she only weighed 3 kilos. That's the equivalent of what your husband is probably experiencing compared to you, because he's probably 3 times as strong as you. If you both tried to squat the heaviest weight that you could, or do as many pull-ups as you could, or lift the heaviest weight that you could in any given movement, he could probably do 3 times as much as you, just because he's a man and men are stronger. So increasing your strength level as a woman, this improves your quality of life, like amazingly. It makes everything so much easier, because the things that you have to pick up and move and deal with on a physical level from day to day stay the same weight, but you get stronger in relation to those weights. So women have far more to gain from strength training than men do. Doesn't mean men shouldn't do it, right? Men are also going to benefit from it, especially as they age. But for women, the gains, the benefits are so massive. Another really important one that I mentioned a moment ago is bone density. So the only way to really increase bone density is to increase the amount of pressure that your bones have to deal with, right? So bones most people think of bones as being like just like this dead piece of like whatever, tissue, calcium, whatever. But bones are living tissues, just like your skin, your hair, your muscles, your connective tissue. And they're made up of lots and lots and lots of cells. And bones respond to strength training in the same way that muscles do. Okay. So when you put more weight on the bones, so let's say you're squatting just your body weight, and then as you get stronger, you're then doing a 5 kilo squat, and then eventually a 10 kilo squat. Your bones also respond by creating more density in the bone. So they renew themselves all the time, but when you're loading them more, they regenerate themselves to be more dense, to have like more thickness to them, like they're heavier, they're denser, and this makes them stronger. And you might not care about bone density. You might think, oh, that sounds really, really boring. This is enormous for your health. Women suffer from osteoporosis, which is like bones getting like fragile and weak, much more than men do. And so the only way for us to really prevent osteoporosis as we age is to lift some moderately heavy weights and create some stimulus for our bones to respond to. And this might not seem very important in your 30s, but in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's incredibly important. And it actually is one of the main causes of death, right? That sounds dramatic, but if you're 75 and you have very low bone density and you're a bit wobbly on your feet, you don't have much muscle mass, so you don't have much balance or hip stability, and you're not very mobile, and then you fall, right? Just from a simple fall, you break your hip, and then you're in a cast, then you can't move. And that cycle of weakness and injury increases. So because you're immobilized and you're doing even less movement because of the break, you then get even weaker, and then you're even more prone to falls and injuries after that. Okay. Again, I know this seems like a really long way off when you're in your 30s or 40s, but this is a massive issue. This is one of the main causes of death in older age. Not just that, the main cause of death, but it's also one of the main causes of loss of mobility and independence and quality of life as we age, because we can't do things on our own. The weaker we are, the less we can do on our own, and the more help we need for things. So this is something that is going to ensure your quality of life as you age. It's really important as well with weight management, ensuring that you have enough muscle mass, and that you're active, doing strength training, doing things that help you build some muscle. It does help us maintain our weight over the coming decades. A lot of people say, muscle burns loads and loads of calories a day. It doesn't, right? It's not that much of a difference. But over the course of many, many years, having more muscle mass means that it's going to be easier for you to it's not just about how much the muscle mass is burning in terms of calories, but it's also about how active you are, right? If you lose muscle mass as you age, if you're losing 5% of your muscle mass every single decade and your bones are getting weaker and your connective tissue is getting weaker, you're going to get slowly less active. And I see this a lot in my parents' generation, in their 60s, that they keep hurting themselves. They keep hurting their back. They keep hurting their shoulder. And then they try to rest until the injury goes away. But they're just getting weaker, and then they keep injuring themselves more and more frequently. And then they keep thinking that rest is the answer. So they keep getting injured more frequently because they're getting weaker. Again, it's that cycle. Okay. And to get out of that, you really need to get stronger and your body become more resilient. Another really important one is blood sugar regulation. So if you are somebody who has a genetic predisposition to diabetes, or if you have diabetes, or if you have any sort of glucose regulation problem or insulin resistance, which can happen because of obesity, but it can happen at healthy weights as well. One of the best things you can do is build muscle. And a lot of people don't think about this. They think that it's all about doing cardio and keeping your weight low, but it's not. Maintaining muscle is the biggest depository of glucose in your body. So what happens when you exercise and when you move is that your muscles suck glucose into them from the bloodstream. So one, the more muscle you have, the better glucose regulation you're going to have. And secondly, the process of building muscle as well, those 2 20-minute workouts every week are going to suck glucose into your muscles out of the bloodstream and help regulate your blood sugar levels for anything between 2 to 3 days afterwards. So if you do the maths, that pretty much covers you for the whole week. I saw this a lot when I used to work in a gym with pregnant clients, those that had gestational diabetes. It would help regulate their blood sugar levels for the next few days. And I've also worked with a few people who have type 1 diabetes. And again, they would come and work with me twice a week, just doing strength training, no cardio. And their blood sugar levels were way more stable the day of the strength training session and in the days after. People don't understand how massive both strength training and having more muscle mass is for diabetes prevention and management. And another big thing that a lot of people don't think of is it has a lot of cardiovascular benefits as well. If you think strength training is just lifting as heavy as you possibly can for 3 to 5 reps or 1 to 5 reps, and then having tons of rest in between, this obviously doesn't create much of a stimulus for your cardiovascular system. But if you are lifting moderate weights in a higher rep range, so anything from 8 to 15 reps, what will happen during the course of that, while you're doing, 10, 15 squats, your heart rate will go up, right? Because the body needs to get more blood and glucose and oxygen to your legs that are working really, really hard. And it needs to go and clear out all of the waste products. And if you set up your strength training in supersets, so doing 2 different exercises, non-competing body parts back to back. So let's say you do a squat and then a row. So you're doing leg, on the most basic level, leg exercise and then an upper body exercise. You increase your heart rate. So you might need a minute's rest in between the squats and the row, and then between the row and the squats. But if you were to go squats, rest for a minute, row, rest for a minute, squats, rest for a minute, row, rest for a minute, that's what a superset looks like. And that can really, really, really give you a lot of cardiovascular benefits. Now, if you don't exercise at all, this is why strength training will give you the biggest bang for your buck, because it will increase your bone density, your muscle mass, your connective tissue density, but it will also improve your cardiovascular fitness. Whereas if you do cardio for 20 minutes twice a week, so the exact same amount of time, because that's all you have a week to spare, you will only improve cardiovascular levels. You won't really improve bone density or muscle mass. or anything else. So if you want to get the biggest bang for your buck, if you're like, I don't have much time to exercise, but I want to get a lot out of it, strength training is going to give you that way more than cardiovascular training for the same amount of time each week. That cardiovascular benefit is something that most people don't think of. If you do cardio a few times a week, that's also great. The combination, like running a couple of times a week and doing weights a couple of times a week, that's the ideal combination if you can do that. But if you're already doing some cardiovascular exercise and you want to add more to your week, you're going to get way more benefits from doing strength training as well as cardio rather than just doing more cardio. And finally, in terms of the health reasons, I've sort of touched on this, but strength training gives you so much more energy for the rest of your life. Again, because everything else is lighter in comparison to your strength levels. So life is just easier. Picking things up, moving things around, doing household chores, way, way, way easier because you're stronger. Which, we all want more energy. We all want to feel better. We all want energy to run around with our kids and things like that. So strength training is going to give you that. If you do the strength training in the right way, it's going to give you energy. Not just like, that long-term energy because you're stronger, but also you'll feel really good after a session and have so much more energy for the rest of your day. Okay, so let's move on to aesthetic reasons. So the main reason why you want to do strength training is because it will give you that toned look. And again, I've been a trainer for 10 years. So I've seen a lot of women. There are a lot of women who are really overweight or quite overweight. And obviously the reason why they don't look toned is because they have body fat and they need to lose that body fat. Even if they're quite strong and have quite a lot of muscle mass, if there's a big layer of fat on top of that, they won't be able to see it. There's a whole class of women who this isn't a very nice term, obviously, but one way that's used to describe them is skinny fat. So they're a healthy BMI, but they have a very high body fat percentage. If someone could be 63 kilos, just like me, and the same height as me, but if she's 30% body fat instead of 10% body fat, that means she's got way less muscle mass and way more fat mass. And that's going to be detrimental to her health. It's going to look very, very different, right? She's going to have a much kind of fluffier look. So skinny fat is when you're kind of a healthy weight, but you've still got quite a high body fat percentage. And a lot of women will try to rectify this by doing more cardio or by dieting more. But actually what they need to do is kind of keep their calories the same, like maintain their weight, but build quite a lot of muscle mass, 2 or 3 kilograms of muscle mass over a number of months. And they stay the same weight, that means they've got 2 to 3 kilograms less of fat mass, and they're going to look very different because their body composition is different, but they won't be a different weight, right? They'll still be that same healthy BMI weight. So muscle is really important for that kind of thing. And it's what brings shape to our body. If you sort of feel like your bum's gone a bit flat after having a baby and it's just completely disappeared, then that is going to be due to, it might be because you've got a little bit more body fat on that area as well, but it's largely to do with losing muscle mass from that area. And so you lose the shape from it. And it's the same if you want to have more definition in your arms. Again, you might need to lose some body fat to reveal what you already have, but building some muscle mass is going to give you that toned, defined, sculpted look that women want. Now, an important thing to remember is that toning is not actually a thing, right? You can't tone the muscles, and you don't want to do low weights with high reps, like say 2 kilos, weigh 4 pounds, waving them around for like super high reps. That doesn't do anything, right? Everyone's got the same number of muscles in their body, right? What you want to do if you want a more toned look, apart from losing some body fat, is gaining some muscle, right? You want to make those muscles bigger. So muscle can do one of 3 things. It can either get bigger, it can get smaller, or it can stay the same. But you can't tone. What women think is toning is using light weights to kind of, do something to create more shape in the muscle. But that doesn't, you can either lose body fat to reveal the muscle that you have, or you can build muscle to increase that look of definition. And most women want to do both simultaneously. Unless you're very, very, very skinny, in which case you really only want to build muscle mass, or if you're very slim, you want to build muscle mass. And then you'll see a bit more definition in your arms. I've worked with a lot of very slim women who just want to kind of get stronger, and they immediately start seeing definition in their arms when they start lifting relatively heavy. Again, not super duper heavy. I'm not talking about doing your body weight in a squat, but just lifting relatively heavy. You also get that, I don't know if you've seen the Ozempic bum thing, where women lose a lot of weight and then they're left with kind of a saggy, flat pancake bum. It's not really the Ozempic that's doing anything. What's happening is that you're losing a lot of body fat, but the Ozempic helps you lose the body fat, helps you eat less, but it doesn't help you build muscle. It doesn't particularly help you. I know people think that it kind of makes you lose muscle mass, but that's not true. It's just that fat loss without strength training will make you lose some muscle mass. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. So if you just take Ozempic out of the picture for a moment, if you lose 30 kilograms of weight, right? You are going to, about 2/3 of that is going to be fat, and another third of that is going to be what's called lean tissue. It's anything that's not muscle. You're going to lose about 10 kilos in muscle, but also in like some connective tissue, in some bone density, in terms of water. Okay. Whereas if you were to lose 30 kilos and you did resistance training throughout, what will happen is you'll lose 30 kilos of fat, right? And you're going to look very different if you lose 30 kilos of fat versus 20 kilos of fat and 10 kilos of lean tissue, okay? That looks very, very, very different. So preserving muscle mass as you lose weight, or even building it as you lose weight, especially if you don't have much to start with, is going to make you look totally different at the end of that journey. And so Ozempic, people think that it makes you lose muscle mass, but it doesn't. Just fat loss without resistance training makes you lose muscle mass. Okay, so the only way to prevent that is by also doing resistance training, whether you're taking Ozempic or not. And the final thing I want to say about the aesthetic results is that with strength training, we can really control where we build shape and definition. So what women usually want to build is a bigger bum, right? Almost all women say, I want a bit of a bigger bum. My bum's gone flat after having kids. You can totally do that. But what women don't think about is that you actually want to build some shoulders and back, like the upper back, because that creates a nice upside down triangle shape from the shoulders down to the waist, especially if then you have a big bubble butt as well. That creates the shape, that hourglass shape that women want to have. So you can be very selective about, okay, I want to build shoulders and upper back, and some muscle on my arms to see more definition, some muscle on my legs to see more definition, and a lot more on my bum to have a bigger butt, right? Like you can do that with strength training. So when it comes to fat, you can't choose where your body burns fat from. It's just going to come off wherever it comes off. You can't sort of burn fat from your belly or burn fat from your bum or burn fat from your inner thigh. Whereas with strength training, you can decide where you build muscle by doing exercises on those specific muscles. Okay, so moving on from aesthetic reasons to mental reasons. Number 3, mental reasons. And the main thing I want to get across here is just, I want to go back a moment to when I discovered strength training. So I lost a lot of weight in my 20s and I got fit, and then I discovered strength training kind of accidentally. And first of all, it completely transformed my body. I stayed the same weight, but like it really made those aesthetic changes that I was looking for that I wasn't getting with endless cardio. But it also changed my mind a lot. I started being really excited about going to the gym to try to lift heavier weights, or trying to get my first pull-up, or then trying to increase pull-ups. My focus in terms of what I was trying to do when I was exercising became more about getting stronger and being able to do more things. And it affected my body in really great ways as well. But it was so nice to go to the gym or do my workouts at home or in a park or whatever with the intention of getting stronger. That was the exciting, fun bit about the training, rather than just going in order to change my body, which previously, I was just running to lose weight. I was just running to be healthy as well, but I was doing it to lose weight. And so you think of it in terms of calories burnt. And I think that's the biggest mental shift that a lot of women have, is like thinking about what their bodies can do and having a strong, capable, resilient body that can resist, like heavy weights, or, like it feels very, very like bulletproof. You start feeling stronger, more capable physically. And I think that has a real knock-on effect to how you feel mentally as well. And it really taught me that I could do hard things. Like if I showed up consistently and did the thing, I would get results. And this rubbed off into a lot of areas of my life, like work and relationships and things like that. It was more about the consistency rather than I used to run for like 2 hours to try to lose weight. And rather than the intensity, more focusing on just the consistency and just consistently showing up. And it gave me a lot of confidence that I was very capable mentally and physically in my day-to-day life. And I think a lot of women who discover strength training realize this as well. I work with a lot of women who are doing like 2 kilo weights at best. And then I show them how they can do it with 3 kilos and then with 4 kilos and then with 5 kilos, and they keep building up. And then they're doing it with 10 kilos. I'm like, wow, I never imagined I'd be able to do this. I thought this would have snapped me in two just a few weeks or months ago. And that is a really great feeling. Feeling physically capable is really, really exciting. And physically having trust in your body is really, really exciting. And I've also heard from a lot of clients that then being able to like go and like move the sofa on their own without asking their husband to help, it's like a really empowering, I hate the word empowering, I think it's really overused today, but it is a really empowering feeling that you can do things on your own. You don't need someone to help you, that you're physically capable and physically independent. That's a really, really exciting feeling, especially if you've experienced being, physically weak and vulnerable, especially like pregnant and postpartum. That can feel really, really, really good and empowering. Like most people think that they're going to have to go to the gym for hours, or that they're going to have to go to a gym at all, and that they're going to have to do really, really, really heavy weights to get the good results. But actually, you don't need any of those things. I'm going to talk to you about what you do need and how you can get fantastic results. Basically, I use a protocol called minimum effective dose. So basically, if you're not doing any strength training, any sort of strength training that you add to your week is going to create improvements, okay? So most people think you need to do like 5 hours a week to get results, but actually, if you aren't doing strength training at all, and then you go up to twice a week for 20 minutes, that is going to get you amazing results in the beginning. You're going to get stronger every single week because of something called beginner's gains. If you're new to it, every single week you're going to get stronger and you're going to be able to lift heavier weights. The things that I really emphasize is, first of all, starting where you're at. I will assess my clients' strength levels by asking them to do, for example, if I want them doing a squat, I'll send them a video of how to do a squat with no weight. And we see how they do that. If they can do 10 squats through full range of motion, then great, they're ready to add a little bit of weight to it, even if it's just 1 or 2 kilos. If they can't do a full range of motion squat, there's no point, trying to lift 10 kilos, right? You don't want to jump ahead, because that's how people get injured. You don't want to just try and do as heavy as possible haphazardly, okay? You want to start where you're at. And if your starting point is doing, say, squats with no weight, that's your starting point. That's fine. Doing a row with 2 kilos, that's the starting point. That's absolutely fine. We can build from there. But if you jump ahead too quickly, you can end up injuring yourself. So what I emphasize is starting where you're at. Number 2, mobility. So if you wanted to do squats, which I want almost everyone to do, I'll establish that they have full mobility, that they can sit in a deep squat, like that Mexican or Indian squat. Sit in that deep squat. That's the second thing. The third thing is then technique. So learning proper squat technique, which most people don't know. They've learned all sorts of rubbish stuff from all types of trainers and Peloton and all kinds of stuff like that. So technique is really important. And then the fourth thing is full range of motion. So in the beginning, someone might only be able to do half range of motion squats, but I'll get them to gradually build range of motion so that they're doing it through full range of motion available at their joint. And then from there, you progress by adding weights. And again, it could just be 1 kilo, then 2 kilos, then 3 kilos, and 4 kilos. If every week you add 1 kilo, eventually you're going to be at 10 kilos, no problem. And you just need to do this across all of the exercises. So for most women, like if you go up to 10 kilos, like that is going to improve your strength in lots of different ways. Most women can get really good results from just one 10 kilo dumbbell. Obviously, you need the weights up to that. What I often recommend my clients get is an adjustable dumbbell that's kind of click in, click out. I'll link it below. And they usually go up to 24 kilos, but you can buy smaller ones that go up to just 10 or 11 kilos. And with one of those, so you don't need to buy the set, you can just buy one of them. You can build enormous strength in lots of different ways with just that one piece of equipment in your home. And it's really not very expensive. It's about $100, $150, something like that. And once you max out that one dumbbell, you can buy another one of the exact same size. So it's like you don't have to make the investment right away. And it's compact, it fits in your house, doesn't take up much space. It's very, very versatile. You can do lots of different exercises with it. And it's the cheapest way of getting lots of weight. All of this, I'm going to go through in another podcast episode of exactly how to strength train if you are a beginner. But I also have a free email course that I will link below. And that will take you through all of the basics of strength training, everything like how much weight, how to rest, technique. It's a written program to tell you exactly what to do in a gym or at home with dumbbells. So make sure you sign up for that email course below. But the main thing I want to just emphasize before I finish this podcast is that a lot of people, again, think they need to do hours and hours of work every single week. But with just 20 minutes twice a week, you can get amazing results. And people think that that's nothing. And how can that possibly get results? But there's something called the law of diminishing returns. So let's say you introduce 40 minutes, or let's say an hour, just to keep it round, an hour of strength training every single week. That hour of strength training gives you a huge return on investment. Like the benefits that you get from the investment of that 1 hour is huge, right? If you add a second hour of strength training onto your week, but the benefits aren't twice as much. They're like 1.5 times as much as an hour, right? So the first hour, you get tons and tons of benefits. Second hour, you get half the amount of benefits, but it's still significant. You add a third hour of training onto your week, and now you're only getting a quarter of that amount, like in terms of return on investment. So the first hour is 100% return on investment. Second hour is 50% return on investment. And then the third hour is like 25% return on investment. And it keeps going like that when you add a fourth or you add a fifth, right? It gets to the point after about 4 hours a week, there's really not much benefit that is going to get you unless you're a really elite bodybuilder and doing absolutely everything really, really perfectly. And this is the other way around to what people think. People think, what's the minimum that I need to do to get results? It must be like 3 hours a week. And it's like, no, it's like an hour a week. That's it. Obviously, there's a point at which you will plateau after just an hour a week, and then you might need to add more time to continue getting better results. But again, the benefits that you get from that extra time that you add beyond the first hour is smaller than the first hour that you get. And that's important to recognize because it means that you get so much more bang for your buck in that first hour than you think. Most people think, oh, the first hour doesn't do anything, or the first 2 hours doesn't do anything. I've got to do at least 3 hours a week for it to do something. And that's how people think. They think it's like a threshold that's like an on and off switch. It's either doing nothing or you hit that threshold and then it's doing something. That's not how it works at all. Even if you only added, if you're not currently doing anything, you only added 10 squats twice a week, that would do something because it's more than zero. So, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's true for cardiovascular fitness as well. It's not like, oh, I have to be running for half an hour for it to do something. No, if you're not running at the moment at all, running for 10 minutes is going to do something. It's going to make you fitter than not what you're currently doing. Or running even for 5 minutes is 5 minutes more than zero. So all of those things have benefits. There's a certain threshold that you have to reach before it does anything, which is the opposite of what people think about training. So I just want to leave you with that idea to encourage you that even doing very minimal training, you can get massive returns on your investment in terms of aesthetic results that you're looking for, in terms of looking toned, defined, all that kind of thing, but also the health reasons, all those things that you talked about, bone density, increasing muscle mass, increasing your mobility as you get older, increasing your energy, cardiovascular benefits. All of these things are going to improve with just 20 minutes twice a week. And again, if you want to know how to do that well, like what exercises to do and all of that kind of thing, you want to listen to, hope this is probably going to be the next podcast that I do, but I don't know, I haven't planned it yet. And of course, my email course that's in the description below, please do that because it is really good, right? I give you a training program, a really simple one, exactly what to do, what exercises to do with tutorials and technique and all of that kind of stuff, a mobility warm up. And then over the course of about 10 days, I go through all the most important things that you need to know about strength training in order to do it effectively and not make all the mistakes that people make that means they don't get results, which is often going way too light, not progressing, things like that. Okay, so I hope you found this helpful. I hope this convinces you to start strength training. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Let me know if you have any other requests for podcast topics. More than happy to do whatever you guys want. So thanks for listening.